Yo,
what up?
Yo, yeah, I didn't go live straight. I didn't start the countdown, so here we are at 8:15 actually on the dot. How's that?
It is 4K on my face. I'm like,
How old you are just yet?
well, I mean, I'm old. It's are we live right now?
We are live, yeah.
So when you sent me that little chat that said we're going live in 3, was that 3 seconds?
Yeah, and then I did 2 and 1 for you, and you know.
So this is the first time I'm seeing you.
Yeah, which is weird. Hi everyone. This is new for me. I'm trying a new thing here. This is a restream. Yeah.
It's music in the background. I'm like,
so yeah, so fun fact. I wanted to use this through OBS, but that required more time to finagle with than I had today.
Yeah.
They have music AI, and you can choose from a bunch of different genres, it looks like. This is their lo-fi.
Oh.
I did not care for the waiting music, though. That wasn't my favorite. So
that was kind of annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, live and learn, right? We try new things.
Well, so I got a question for you. I know this is we're interviewing me, but why restream over StreamYard? I'm just curious.
The price.
Yeah, fair.
This I think was $20 less per month for 1080p streaming.
Oh no way!
Yeah. First of all, the fact that 1080p streaming is like at a tier.
That's nuts. Like that should just be. What does StreamYard do? 720p?
Yes. Yeah, and it offers 1080p, but again, you have to go through. So like this, I even upgraded for 1080p. It's $40 a month. It's ridiculous.
$40 a month. Well. All right.
You know, try new things. I love the idea of it, but it's just a shame that there's no real ease of doing things. But like I said, I wanted to get this up and running. I wanted to get the series going, and so I'll buy in for a month or two, and then as I can have time to build my own stuff out. Right.
Sounds good, man.
Yeah, cool. So, first of all, thank you, looking for sponsors. Wally says, "Thank you to anyone who's tuned in currently. We're on X, we're on YouTube, and we're on Twitch. Apologies if there's any. We're again trying a new tool, so we'll see how this goes. Chris is my I won't say guinea pig because that's rude, but
I thought you were gonna call me Tool.
No,
Chris is my tool.
No, Chris is my boy. Chris is my boy,
buddy.
Yeah. So I wanted to
hello
May and Wally, obviously looking for sponsors. I wanted to go ahead and get the stream going because actually it's funny. So Chris and I are both part of a cohort essentially called Gridiron Survivor. If you've not heard of it, we'll dive more into it. And Karina reached out to me, who's another team member of ours, and was like, "Hey, do you have like time to just meet? Like, I want to learn I want to know more about you." And I know Mai has done that in the past, and I've had a one-on-one with her, and you know, and I was like, this would be a great idea for the team in general, and it's like free content, so to speak, right? Yeah, so I thought it was a really good thing to set up, and everyone was on board. Everyone in the team was like, absolutely, yes, let's do this.
Yeah, I think it provides a little bit more insight into who everyone is. I mean, you see us on Shashi's stream, but you know, typically there's a guest like, you know, today we had Tracy, or we have other guests where we're going through some sort of presentation, and this is a little bit more personal. And there's so many wonderful people on the team and there's people on the team I think who are quiet, and just this gives them an opportunity, I think, to shine a little bit. You know,
I have to agree with you there. I definitely have to agree with you. Yeah, it's we're going to learn a bit about everyone. I wrote down some questions to go through, and you know, obviously we can stick to them, but I know we'll go. So yeah, real quick, for those of you that haven't heard about Chris and I met when we were at that conference in Austin earlier this year in January, and we're two people looking to break into the field, as it's everyone else on Gridiron Survivor, and Chris and I just happen to connect pretty well. We are both in the same industry currently, funnily enough, and both trying to make that break-in happen, which is difficult, but Gridiron Survivors definitely made that easier.
Yeah.
Chris, we've connected pretty well, I think, right off the bat.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we clicked. You know, there's certain people in life that you click with, and there's certain people that you don't. The click was there.
Exactly right. So look at that. We've got Upa in the stream, Dominic,
Roxy,
Mai, Elder. Roxy. What is going on? Hello, thank you for joining.
And Mai asked, "What are your mics?"
I
mean, this is the Rode Pod Mic.
Yes.
Pro.
We both have the same one. I think it's just the Pod Mic.
It's just the Pod Mic. It's just their XLR mic. It's pretty great. And then I'm running it with I have a Cloud Lifter as a preamp, and then that goes into another thing. I don't know.
I have my Rode Pod Mic going to my Elgato Wave XLR.
Yeah.
And so basically with XLR microphones, you need an audio interface to take the analog sound into digital. So the Wave XLR acts as that audio interface, which allows it to go from analog into the digital sound into your computer. Why I went with this, because I had the Scarlett Solo, which actually I traded Wally for his other Wave XLR. Because when you're streaming, the Wave XLR has a software involved that makes virtual audio routing so much easier. Yeah, it's a killer tool. You need to use this to get access to it. I don't know if that's still the case, but it was.
It is
when
not.
I bought it.
It is not. If you have the Stream Deck, you get access to it as well now.
Okay.
So I have the Scarlett Solo. I have the Scarlett Solo going in USB, of course, but I have a Stream Deck.
Yeah,
I tried out the Wave stuff, but it kept on like resetting on me, and so I'm gonna try something that James Quick told me about. I think when I start streaming again eventually, when I have time again. But
I'm with you, Dom. Audio stuff has come down so much from where it was. It's amazing. Like even USB microphones have gotten so much better these days, where you really don't need an XLR mic anymore. I mean, like, Rode offers their new version of the Pod Mic, which has USB-C.
And then the not SM7B, but the
M470 or something
like that. Yeah.
And it's $100 cheaper than the 7B.
I know. And it sounds just like it. It
sounds so close to it, with like the slightest MV7. Thank you, Wally. Yeah.
Here's what we need to do, Ryan. We need to here's my pitch. All right. You and I are going to start interviewing other devs and their setups.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then there's our next series.
And then we can do like little posts about it and provide a place for people to like, here's my setup and all the things. And there's one place to go to for devs. I wish someone had a site called like devkits.me or something.
It's almost like someone bought a URL for something like that.
I don't know.
Didn't do anything with it. I'm just saying.
That's me. That's me.
Yeah,
I did.
You're the guy.
Devkits.me. Anyway, it's a conversation for another time.
Yeah. We'll have to do this again. Touch more on that stuff for sure.
Yeah, I feel like we geek out on all the techie things.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a techie since I got my first. I can't even say my first computer. My parents bought Wally and I a computer. I don't know how old we were. We had DSL, so it wasn't dial up at the time, but we had Verizon DSL internet. But just the fact of plugging the pieces into not the pieces, plugging the peripherals into the computer, like that got me hooked on technology.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was the coolest thing.
This is gonna for sure age me, but my first computer was a DX 486 DX with like a mega RAM.
Yep.
I had WordPerfect on there, DOS 6.1.
Oh man,
I learned batch file programming. Yeah, a lot of stuff. But I digress. We're techies. What are we even doing here right now, man?
Yeah. All right, so let's run through some of the questions real quick. So again, we
okay. Yes, I know there's kit.co, Upa. I know about that. But my motivation is what if it's a kit site specifically for developers, but has a built-in API to where people can use it to store their kits, present it to people to browse, and or use an API to pull it into their own database, almost like as a kit CMS. That
would be fun. That would be fun.
Okay.
I'm going to shamelessly plug what my brother shamelessly plugged for me. Yeah, a uses page is a great first start to that.
I have one too. You have one.
Yeah, it's great. Brett Garapi has one. I know Braden Coyer has one. Easy to do. And hey, and this is not like, hey, make money from everything you do, but listen, like throw affiliate links on there. If one person clicks on it, you're making money.
So here's the thing though. All right, here's what I want to do though. And we're going totally off track, but I don't care.
We'll get back there. Don't worry.
Put his link back up there. That uses link.
Yes.
Right. So my idea is that uses link, we can have pre-designed like layouts that people can pull into their sites, and then management on DevKit, so people could search for it on devkits.me, or they can embed it in their site if they want for a fee, right? So it's like hey, you can use our site, devkits.me/Ryan Furr, or you can do a custom domain for a fee and have access to the API.
Yeah, I don't see why that wouldn't work out.
I don't know.
It's one of those things where, I think back to using, like, for example, I changed my username everywhere from Ryan Furrer or whatever it was to Ryan DOT Furrer, because Ryan Furrer was not available. RyanFurrer.com wasn't available for the longest time, and so I'm having to go through every place to ensure I have the accurate GitHub, like all of it, and it's infuriating. And I thought, man, maybe I should really just stick with one of these bio.link or any of those just pages where you have it all in one place, because it's such a pain in the behind to go through and update every single one of those.
You want to hear the biggest miss of my life when it comes to domains?
Tell me.
All right. So my Twitter handle is I am Wix. All right. My nickname is Wix because my last name is Nowicki, and not a lot of people can pronounce it. So ever since high school, I've had the nickname Wix, and it's great, right? And right after college, I started a website because everyone would ask a question, what is a Wix? So I had a website called whatisawix.com, and I built it with Apple's thing at the time. I forgot what Apple's website builder was. This is like back in early 2000s, okay?
Yeah, that's a throwback.
Now, yes, Tyler, all right, now, but yes, Dominique can see where this is going now. I almost bought Wix.com, and I said, nah.
Could you imagine?
Nah, exactly. I saw Dominique's thing was coming through. I was like, oh my God. Like, he picked it out. So,
yeah.
2 years ago at Render. I went to Render ATL. I know, Upa, a lot of people think it's related to Wix.com. It is not at all. It's just my thing. But it does help when you're trying to find tech jobs and you end up walking into a room. And anyway, funny story, though, is that at Render ATL in 2023, last year, not this past year's, but the year before, Wix was there. They had a huge presence, and I got to meet a lot of the senior people there. And so I heard their keynote speak on the main stage, and I went over to them like, hey, love you guys. And I told them this exact story. Like, I almost bought your website. My nickname is Wix. So here's what I want everyone to do right now. I want you to go to Google, and I want you to look up, what does the word Wix mean in German? Just do it.
I had a feeling.
Yep. But I didn't know that. It was the Wix people that told me that.
Wild. The more you know. We're not going to put that on the stream.
Yes. No.
But you all can look it up yourself.
Yes. Yes. And yes. Yeah. Yes. I could have been Wix.com. So that's my biggest. Anyway.
So this is now your, like, if you ever get to go back in time and tell yourself something, it's by Wix.com at that
correct.
point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. 1000%.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna steer this ship back on course.
Yes, let's do it.
So again, the point of this is I want myself and others to learn more about those of us that are building Gridiron Survivor. I've talked enough about myself on my own streams that a lot of people probably already know things, and maybe someone could interview me on my own stream one day. But we're interviewing Mr. Chris Nowicki. And with that, Chris, I did want to learn a little bit more about your background. You know, sort of. Yes, you've always been a techie similar to me, but what got you specifically into web development, and where are you coming from, and what made you decide to finally switch to web development?
Yeah, so I think I kind of talked about it earlier, but it started at an early age, like tech in itself. When my dad and I were building computers at a very, very young age, I just loved how things worked, right? And you know, I get up to high school, and high school comes along, and, you know, one of my buddies is really good with computers. So we ended up building computers together and playing video games. This is like when Quake 2 was out and Doom was in its prime. And, you know, you would go into DOS prompt to load out all that. And I just got really into tinkering with tech. And then I got in when I went to college. So in high school, I was like a 2.3 GPA kid. I was ADHD to the prime, you know, just I hated school. Like, but when it came to things like chemistry or trigonometry or geometry or anything math related or logic related, A+, hands down. Earth science, social studies, you know, foreign languages, I did horrible at, right? Now, when I went to college. Oh, was that your thing?
That was me doing it. Yep.
Oh, that's what we're doing there. That's great. All right. So long story short, because I could go on this forever, because I could go down an ADHD spiral of storytelling. Got into college, and when I was at college, I studied network engineering, and that was my degree, network engineering and PC support. So it was, and the way the college worked, which I feel like I cheated the system somehow, but the way the college worked is you did your core studies first, meaning I did everything required for network engineering and all that, with the few liberals in their studies in there, but gen eds, but not a lot, not the normal stuff. So then after 2 years, you get your associate's degree. And then they invite you to come back based on your GPA, and you can finish your bachelor's and do a focus and stuff like that, right? So I was like, you know what? I graduated, loved networking, found a little job at a company in Boston, and I was like, whatever. And I didn't go back for my bachelor's degree at the time. So then fast forward 3 years, I go back to school for my bachelor's, and they go, hey, you have an associate's degree. All your gen eds are waived. And I went, awesome, right?
Sure.
So then I got my bachelor's in digital media. So that's graphic design, film, and that's where I got exposure to not just graphic design, film, photography, all the creative things, but I got exposure to Linux. I got exposure to the command line, and there was a class called web design where you did everything from framing of a website, proposals of a website, then you had to develop a website, and then they also had Visual Basic Studio, which I loved. I became the TA for that class because I could just write code all day. I loved it. And so that's kind of what introduced me into the space of web development. And ever since, I would say I dabbled in web development early on when you had to just create a vanilla HTML site with your CSS file, with your a vanilla HTML, vanilla CSS, upload it to a cPanel FTP server, somewhere out there. And I mean, that's what I did. I remember I was a part of a drum corps for a few years, and our drumline had a website, and I made a website for it and posted pictures and stuff like that. So always something I dabbled in.
Hold on, I got to touch back. You were also in drumline.
I was in drum corps. Yeah. Have you heard of drum corps?
Of course, I've heard of drum corps. Okay. But I'm only asking specifically because I was also in drumline. I was in marching band for a few years.
Oh,
actually.
Nice.
Yeah. And actually, I remember that someone found like a group of us from marching bands. I don't remember who it was, but
it's Taylor. It was Taylor.
Was it Taylor? Okay, maybe
it was Taylor because he was talking about drum corps. And he's like, "Who else do I know that's done drum corps?"
Okay,
like, yeah. Because I did 3 years of DCI, 3 world championships. A lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, it's a good time. It was a good and bad time. Like, I look back on marching band and stuff very fondly, but I don't think I would ever want to do it again.
I would do it. I would do it in a heartbeat. I would do it in a heartbeat. Oh, absolutely. I mean, performing, like, I would perform for crowds of, I think at championships there's like 50, 60,000, and there's nothing like it. It was awesome. But
it was.
Yeah, so I would do websites for that, and what happened was my first job out of college, I became a teacher at a private Christian school in California. One of my buddies' father-in-laws was like the senior pastor of this church, and he oversaw the school, and he's like, "Hey, we need a network guy and we need a computer teacher." And I was like, hey, that's me. Cool. And then about 2 years after that, so I moved to California from the Midwest, and there's a story. There's kind of like a little bit of a path here. So what happens is I meet a girl. It always starts with meeting a girl, right? Well, I met a girl.
Yeah.
And through her, I met the hiring manager of the job that I've been at now for 18 years, which is an aerospace defense company. And my job with them from the very beginning has been, when they saw me, they go, "Okay, you have a network engineering degree. You're familiar with computer networks. You know how to build, maintain computer networks. Cool. You know some sort of scripting in the command line. You understand Linux a little bit. And you know how to teach, because I taught 6th through 12th grade, from computers to a bunch of I taught math to and a few other things. So I understood how to teach a subject, regardless. And so they hired me. And so my job was to work on, I wrote technical documentation, system administration and maintenance tech documentation for enterprise Linux systems. Where if you had a server from the hardware, it goes down. Well, my job was to teach them, if it goes down, here's how you troubleshoot it and get it back up, so it's operational 99.99% of the time. And so I wrote all the technical documentation, I wrote all the training material, and then I spent years traveling in the United States for US contracts, and then I did a lot of stuff. I lived overseas for many years training foreign militaries, and it was probably the coolest point. That was like from 27 until a while ago. And what happened is I kind of got burnt. I've been in the industry for 18 years. I haven't touched I on the side. Roxy asked, "Where did you live?" Well, I lived all over the place. Here, funny thing is, there's seasons of my life, Roxy, where Overseas, I lived in Malaysia. So I lived in Kuantan, I lived in Kuala Lumpur, I lived in the Federal Territory of Labuan, and I lived in Kuching. So all four places in Malaysia, and then I lived in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for almost 4 years. So
that's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of stuff. And then I had a condo in Anaheim, California at the time that I never lived at, but that's cool. So yeah, I mean, right around 2014, 2015. Oh no way! I love that country. I love Iran. Okay,
there you go.
Malay folks are super chill. They are the super nice. Habibi. Uva, you just said my favorite words, Habibi. Look at you, buddy. I love it. Man. It's so cool when you meet, like, you know, people know, like,
it's truly a small world, isn't it?
It is a small world.
Which makes no sense, but it is.
Yeah. But, all right, long story short, Mike, I moved into management, not by choice, but it just happened. It was a necessity at the time. And I was like, great, this is a good opportunity. Cool. You know, I'm moving up in the company. I'm climbing the ladders. It's a little bit more pay bump. Great. I've been doing that. I've been doing management stuff since 2014. Till was it 2018? I took over a team, moved to Texas, and I've been managing that team since. And it's a phenomenal team that I manage. My team is I love what they do. They're great, but I miss being creative, and I don't know. There's something with being able to create something. And I had a stint of not attempting, but I got bored traveling. I was traveling by myself all the time. So I had a YouTube travel vlog for a while, youtube.com/Chris Wicks, if you want to stalk my years of traveling. And I was like, no, I don't want to be a YouTuber. I don't want to do anything like that. And so I remember I was like, all right, what's the world of web development got into? And this is in 22. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
In 22, I'm like, you know, I want to see what the world, I don't know. I started seeing a lot more of the influencer developers on TikTok and all that stuff. And they're all talking about programming. I'm like, you know, how much has it progressed since I last did this in, 22 years ago?
Yeah.
Whew, it was cool. So I did freecodecamp.com, and I went on there and I did their whole like JavaScript course, and I loved it. I mean, just writing functions was just a blast. I'm like, oh, okay, here's how you. I'm like, I'm sitting here thinking I'm the boss writing for loops. You know, I'm like, that's right.
Oh God, yeah,
that's right. Oh, you want me to do a nested for loop inside a for loop? Fizz buzz. Oh yeah,
I got you.
I got you. Loved it. And then I started doing Code Camp a little bit and started learning a little bit more what's out there. And then I learned about React. All right, and I went, whoa, this is cool. My mind is blown. I don't know what to do with this. And I realized I don't want to do tutorial hell anymore. I know my brain and I need structure. I need structure. That's really what it comes down to. So I invested a good amount of money into a boot camp with who was it? Oh, Coding Dojo. That's who it was.
Okay. Yeah, like, I've heard that before.
Coding Dojo. And
actually, I'm sorry, with that, got to go back. That structure, that lack of structure is probably the most difficult thing as a self-taught, but just getting into the industry itself.
Oh yeah.
Is a lack of structure, a lack of a real roadmap. Companies put out these developer roadmaps, and dude, there's so many different ways you can go. So
there is.
I don't blame you for looking towards a boot camp for that.
Well, and it was like, all right, if I'm going to do this, I want to invest in it, because if I invest in it, and then there's a stake in it. So if I invest my money into this thing, then I will most likely spend that time and effort to it. So my wife and I kind of sat down and I talked through, look, and she knew that I was really unhappy in my job, and she could see it. It wears on me, And so she's like, you know what? And we were newly married. Like, we got married February of 22. And we talked about this in March. Like, she came home from a weekend trip with some girls, and I'm like, hey, so I think I'm going to go back to school to be a developer. And she's like, what does that even mean? And so we talked about it, and we're like, all right, if this is, she's super supportive and wonderful. And so started in May of 22. I did 2 stacks. I did Python and Mern. And so they start you off with 4 weeks of just basic HTML, CSS, and breeze through that. Great. Okay. Perfect scores. Wonderful. And then I did 8 weeks of Python, where we used Flask, Python, and MySQL. And we learned about MySQL Workbench and, just the whole everything, creating databases from scratch, querying databases, creating a Node.js server with Express, or not, this wasn't Express. We used Flask. Sorry.
Right.
Not Node.js, because this is Python. Obviously, I haven't used Python since boot camp, but 8 weeks of that. And then we did 8 weeks of Mern, and I fell in love with React, and I fell in love with Express, and I fell in love with MongoDB or NoSQL, SQL. I love both. I loved the concept. No Upa, no Django. I
always pronounce it Django.
No Ango, man. No Ango. Not that I have anything against it. It's just that wasn't a part of their that just wasn't a part of their curriculum. But I've heard great things, wonderful things about it. I would love to play with that someday. But anyway, so I dove into React and absolutely loved it. Here's what I love the most is not just the ability to create, like, okay, I can make something look somewhat decent, but then the thought process of I'm going to create data. It's going to store in a database, then I'm going to fetch it, and I can manipulate it however I want. And that process of figuring out how to fetch it and writing those fetch queries, and then even, I remember the first day that I figured out. So in the boot camp, what they had you do was, when you took your exam at the end of the 8 weeks, you had a choice. You could choose to get it done within 24 hours and get your orange belt. So you had 24 hours to get it done. Or you could get your red belt and you had 5 hours to complete your exam. And there's specific requirements for that red belt. You have to do these a little bit of extra features in it. All right.
Okay.
Then they have black belt, which is get it done in 5 hours. All of the red belt requirements, and then some more additional features. And within a 24-hour period, you have to deploy it to an EC2 instance that you start from scratch.
Wow.
All right. And so they barely taught you that piece of it. So, of course, me being all in, I'm like, I'm going black belt, right?
Naturally, yeah.
Naturally. And so I remember one of the black belt requirements was, what you need to do here is you need to sort. You need to create a sort on a table and be able to sort it from A to Z, Z to A, however you want. And I remember even just figuring out how to write that sort. I know it's basic now, but I remember when I figured that out, it was just the dopamine going to my brain was awesome.
There's no playing down getting something to work. Like after researching or fighting with it, absolutely.
Yeah, it was great. So yeah, that's how I basically got into it. And I guess, I have a phenomenal coach. Her name is Tessa Kriesel, just a wonderful human being. And she always reminds me, she goes, Chris, you are in tech. Because I say, I'm breaking into tech. You're just transitioning to a new part of tech. Because I've always been involved in the server side of things, writing scripts and the networking. Oh, shoot. Alex has a Twitch now? Man, how about Alex? Alex gets a Twitter and a Twitch. He's all about
with the times
today. Yeah. But anyway, there you go, man. That's a
Alex
really
is another
long
team member that we'll have on soon.
First Twitter, now a Twitch. Received 100 messages today. Oh, wait, look at that. We got a little award. We received 100 messages.
How about that?
Look at that. But anyway, that's the, I don't know. I've always been a techie. I love tech. I love playing with it. And just there's something about web development that I get stoked. I love it. It could be the simplest thing, but when I'm sitting there and I'm writing code, I'm like, it's almost zen. Feels weird, right? But
I mean, I get it, because when you're in that zone, especially in flow state, especially, and you're just slinging code and just, dude, nothing feels better. Honestly,
yeah.
like it's like a high almost when I'm like actually doing a good job and I feel so confident that what I'm doing is the right thing and how it's working. And you can't maybe have that all the time, but I think just figuring it out is one of the best things. So a lot of what I've seen from your work on Deals for Devs and Gridiron Survivor is, I do look a lot of times at your ability to do the stuff that I want to do, but a lot of it sounds like it came from that time in boot camp where kind of
hands
like
down,
the seed was planted, and since then it's just grown and thrived.
Yes. Oh, 1,000%, 1,000%. I mean, I think here's the thing though, Ryan. Because you said this to me many times, and so I want to affirm you. It's not that I don't think you can't do it. It's that, one, the opportunity, you focus so much on the UX of things.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're kind of already doing it even on your personal site. You're connected to a CMS. You're pulling stuff into your personal site from a CS. That is a method of fetching data and hooking it up.
Yeah.
So I think, you just need, once you do it once, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and that's why I'm building side stuff. When I try to force myself to do stuff that's not Gridiron, and that's where my time is going now, is like filling out those weaknesses of mine, because I see again, we can't all be the same. We're not all the same developer, and I think comparing yourself to others is not the way to go.
Yeah.
But I can see in you stuff that I want to be doing comfortably, and so that's where the desire comes from, right? And saying like, I want that bit of Chris, and I want to be that part of, that I want that in my.
Well, you're gonna get there. It's I appreciate. That's so kind of you, dude. I don't think it's. I look at what Shashi writes and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, it's
Same.
I look at, I remember when me and James did the code review.
Yeah, the first time that I jumped on, was that it?
Yeah, that was the first time. That was like almost a couple weeks. It was probably a month after we got back from that conference in January, and so we're on. I think it's on James, his YouTube channel. He has it in there, but I just remember him going through, and he didn't he didn't rip it apart, but he gave me some really good pointers on them. And I look at his code now and I go, man, it's just years of experience, know. And so
right.
It's crazy what. I did. What did someone say to us today, or it was during today's stream or something, like, we're persevering as we're searching for, we're trying to perfect our skills, grow our skills, and transition into the industry in a different place. We're burnt out from it at times, but the perseverance of doing this, 5 years from now, we're going to be talking at a conference like, do you remember when we were struggling? And we may still be struggling 5 years from now, but it's going to be struggling with what is the latest tech that has changed and blowing our minds at that time.
It's not getting a job.
Correct. We'll already be in there. And so that's kind of, I would love to fast forward to that.
Me too. Me too. Well, maybe in a way that we could help others. I wanted to ask, obviously we have a ton of resources that we look at, and whether you're a new dev, you haven't even thought about it, or you're existing and saying, hey, what's out there? What are your 3 favorite resources or platforms that have been most helpful to you learning? And I asked for 3 because we could just list off so many, right?
I mean, we could lift off. It's time to lift off. We could list so many. All right. Full transparency. Lately, with TypeScript, it's been ChatGPT, and here's why. I'm not using ChatGPT to write TypeScript for me. I'm writing TypeScript, and then I'm like, I do not understand this freaking error. I don't understand what is going on here. What did I do wrong with whatever it is that I'm trying to, put the type for, right? So I take the whole thing, copy it into ChatGPT, and then I highlight I copy the error, and then paste that in after it, and I go, you are a senior developer. Tell me, why is this not working? And then it spits out that one thing, and you go, oh, and then I go, okay, can you explain this to me further? That's how I'm using AI right now. As far as, rather than going, please write me this function to do this, I go, all right, I don't understand this error. Here's what I'm trying to do. There's been times when I've just been curious and I pasted an entire component
Yeah.
And there to go, how can I refactor this to make it more efficient? Now, is it correct all the time? No, sometimes it shoots out, really bad code, but that's been one useful resource. That is one of my places for a quick, like, what's going on here, right? I've tried Stack Overflow, couldn't really get into it. So that's one learning place that I have. I think the second learning place that I have is YouTube.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of articles everywhere out there and a lot of how-to videos. Shashi recently. Oh, speaking of, hey Shosh.
Hey,
dude, our fearless leader there himself. So, Shashi gave me a ticket on Gridiron Survivor to look into user permissions that I'm going to be implementing in. That basically, if you're one of us as the developers, we have a super admin, that has access to the admin dashboard, and then eventually there's going to be the owner of a league who will be an admin of their league, and they'll have access to certain things, right? So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to look into this a little bit, especially because it involves AppWrite, and AppWrite is a wonderful sponsor. We've been beating the heck out of their platform and really trying out different things. And so I was like, all right, how can I make this work? So I went to YouTube and I typed in user permissions with AppWrite, and lo and behold, there is a Next.js article on how to do user permissions with AppWrite. And there's some things they're doing that I didn't even think about doing. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. So I'm starting to document that stuff, and I'm learning by that as well. So I think YouTube, ChatGPT, those are the places I go to search for things. I'm not really in a regular place for learning.
Or what about, problem solving? You've searched, right? You have YouTube and ChatGPT.
And
if you don't have a third, that's okay too.
I'll say this in generic. I think the third is whatever documentation of whatever stack I am working in. So, we were the other problem I had to solve recently for Gridiron Survivor was, for whatever reason, the ESLint errors were not stopping the build from compiling.
Yes.
And so I was like, what is going on? And so I looked up a bunch of stuff. I'm like, all right, this has something specifically to do with Next.js. Why? And so then I went to the Next.js docs, searched up, found it, and I found out, oh, we gotta, turn on this option in the next config that says on error, let's not ignore that. Let's actually on error, we're going to stop the build from building, so that way we can fix those errors that were caught by ESLint. And Shashi has put in a beautiful number of linting for us. Thank you, buddy.
A beautiful number is anything over like 10 and even 1, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree too. GitHub issues, there's been times I've gone to issues, if I'm working in, I'll use again, because Next.js is what I work in a lot. I'll look at Next.js and I'll go, all right, well, I'll go to their channel and I'll go, or their GitHub, and I'll go to their issues or their discussions, and I'll type in what I'm looking for and see what comes up, and there might be some people who have faced that there as well.
All right.
Maybe,
I got to agree with the docs.
Yeah.
I even wrote about that in, I want to say a recent blog, but a more recent blog, because it's been a couple months, but read the docs. Like, they're scary, and I think the lack of multi-level docs, which is something I could go into, but I won't here. But there's so much that we often forget about, and not all docs are created equal, that's for certain. But along with that, MDN has got to be one of my favorite go-tos.
Oh, MDN is great. Yeah,
it's
MDN.
Just like, and for people that are maybe not as experienced, the Mozilla Developer Network, like those docs, dude, like they're scary at first, because it's like a very textbook definition of whatever you might be looking up, a CSS property, JavaScript method, whatever it is. But going in and able to understand those, I feel like will just give you the most bang for your buck, because if you understand those, you can go understand any documentation for Next or anything like that.
Oh yeah, and then even trying to now it's dependent. Just make sure it's good documentation.
Yeah, like I said, not all are created equal.
But I would say one more thing I want to throw in there on this topic is when I was at that conference in January, man, I'm gonna totally butcher Tejas Kumar. Is it Tejas? Tejas?
It is.
Tejas?
I was corrected on this too. I think it's Tejas.
Tejas. Okay. Tejas Kumar. He said, if you're not using AI to search the web, what are you doing? Right. And so he introduced us to Perplexity AI.
Oh,
so I use Perplexity to search the web. Okay. Spelling out the name Dominique does not help with phonics, buddy. Phonics.
What's up, a Noah gamer?
Oh, this is too much fun. All right, what do we got next, man?
All right, so what's next? Yeah, definitely use Perplexity. It gives you the sources where it's getting the information from. Critical, especially as Google search has gotten worse and worse. Again, that's a topic I could really go into as well. But all right, next up is a little bit of a long-winded question, but first of all, in your words, what is Gridiron Survivor? Let's educate the people who, a lot of them probably already know what it is, since they they follow me and you. But what is Gridiron Survivor?
Are you talking about what is the app that we're building, or what is the cohort?
That is the question. Shashi's gonna have to come up with a name for the group of us.
Okay,
but so do both.
All right. We'll start off with what we're building. What is Gridiron Survivor? Now, here's where the irony comes in. I could give two craps and a giggle about sports. I don't follow sports. I don't watch sports. Now, when it comes to like the playoffs or even, the playoffs get me excited because they mean something. Like the stats leading up to it, I could care less. Like if this person's playing and they lose and they're out, that's more exciting to me. That's just how I've always been. It's just weird. Okay.
Yep.
So this is the irony of me now being in a web developer cohort where we are building a sports app. So Gridiron Survivor is this. You have a football season that is X number of weeks long. And I say X number of weeks because I'm not going to pretend to know how many weeks long it is. And the idea is you have a league. All right. And there's going to be X number of people in that league. So, maybe just, 5 of you and your closest friends. Cool. Week 1, you're like, you know what? Week 1, let's see who's playing this week. All right. I'm going to bet the Patriots are going to lose, and I'm going to bet you the Chiefs are going to win. All right. So maybe they're not playing against each other, but, you choose. Oh, gosh. We got a cat.
Oh, here it is.
Okay.
Look at the fluffy thing and your beautiful wife, but hello.
Hey. This is Mr. Chesterfield.
I love Mr. Chesterfield.
Hey, buddy. What's going on?
Look at that adorable fluff.
Yeah.
Give me.
All right, go on. All right. Sorry. Jason. All right. So basically, week 1, you're like, you know what? I'm going to choose a team, and whether they lose or win. So you just choose one. I'm sorry, I misspoke too, but one. So I'm going to say that the Patriots are going to lose, right? And so week 2 comes along, and let's say the Patriots lost. Cool. I'm still in. Or you choose. Wait, do you choose who wins? Am I saying this?
Yeah. So okay. All right. I'm gonna save you a little bit here. So a Survivor League in football is when you have X amount of weeks.
Okay. So a Survivor League is when you have X number.
But you can choose the team that's by default you want to pick choose the team that's going to win. So if it's the Patriots versus the Jets, and you say, hey, I think the Jets are going to win, you pick the Jets, and then let's say you and I are versing each other, we will win. I'll win, and then you lose. So the Jets win, I move on, you're out. In a reverse Survivor League, you choose who's going to lose, but by default, it is choosing who's going to win.
There you go. So that's that.
Yeah. So we're designing an app, Gridiron Survivor. It's a Survivor Football League management app that, similar to other, you have ESPN and Yahoo fantasy apps, but this is specifically geared towards the Survivor style of leagues. We need to come up. Actually, this is why I added this. Because it's really good.
Great.
It's really good interview prep for those of us in Gridiron Survivor to explain what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah. Here's so now you can put this in your head and be like, I need to work on that.
But here's the thing: I've explained it like that before, but I got nervous. I'm like, oh no, I got to explain to the world what this is.
Our lovely 11 viewers. I don't know what X has because it doesn't show me here because they're API.
Hey, 11 viewers is the world to me.
Hey, look at these people. They're the people I would expect over here. So, Upa, it's another kind of fantasy. But you don't.
What if you switch to a set? Jason, stop it. Stop it.
Like 70 on Twitter. Nice. All right. So then what is Gridiron Survivor outside of the app?
Is this like an existential crisis question? Like what?
No, what is we all say how we belong to Gridiron Survivor, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. So gosh, why am I fumbling on this one? And this is so funny. So you have Gridiron Survivor, the app, and then you have Gridiron Survivor, the cohort. And we as a cohort are working as a team that Shashi Lowe has generously been leading out of the kindness of his heart and wanting to help other developers get real world experience. So the idea here is we're filling in the gap from what we wouldn't be getting from self-taught or boot camp, which is working in a team, figuring out merge conflicts, having a product owner, having a sprint, being able to look at your card, learning how to communicate with your team and say, hey, I'm coming into this issue. I think it's going to affect your ticket over here. Or, you know, when you're someone like me and makes a really big PR and a major break to our develop branch, you know, letting everyone know, hey, you're going to have a lot of merge conflicts. I'm sorry. But we're all at different stages of our learning journey. There's a UX team. There at the beginning was a back-end time. Now it's a functional engineering team. So you have people that are working on the look of the site. You have people that are working on the hooking everything together. So, you know, when the page is put together with all the data, I come in and the functional engineering team comes in and we go, all right, let's hook this up to the database and let's make all the fetches and calls so that when you load the page, all the data is pulled in dynamically as needed.
Yeah.
That is a great question.
Yeah. From a Noah Gamer. What stack is it?
Yeah, so we're using Next.js and we're using AppWrite. So we're using AppWrite for our authentication, for our database storage. It's a NoSQL database. And then we are using Next.js as our front end, and it provides a nifty little backend included with it as well. So we don't have a separate Express server or anything like that. We're just using straight up Next.js, and then we're using Tailwind CSS for a lot of our styling. We're using ShadCN for our component UI. Am I missing something?
Next.js,
Playwright,
ShadCN, Playwright
for end-to-end testing
library.
Yep, just for unit testing. Right now, Nick, that's a great question. Right now, we are using the authentication portion. So we're using the password, just email and password authentication that we're using. And then that's the only thing we're using for, and functions. So we do use AppWrite functions portion as well, so that when you register for Gridiron Survivor, we have a hook in AppWrite and an AppWrite function that says on someone registering, it's going to create their profile collection in the database. So if you're not familiar with a collection, it's similar to a document. It's similar to like you're updating a table of, you know, user preferences or something like that. So we have a specific collection or table that contains the user ID, it contains what leagues they're a part of, and stuff like that. And exactly, Shashi. It's a NoSQL database. So the function basically creates that automatically. So we let them handle that piece, but we wrote all the code for that to happen.
Yeah, AppWrite honestly seems, I've used it very little. I used it in one of my own projects to start messing with auth and with a backend as a service. But I think that we are also going to experiment using their messaging, possibly, because if we want the admin to be able to message all the people in the league, we'll have to see how that works out. But it'd be great to experiment with that since it's newer as well on their side.
Yeah, lots of little things we're looking at, but primarily that's kind of what we're doing right now. We are hosting on Vercel right now.
Yep.
So if you go to gridironsurvivor.com, that is hosted on Vercel.
It's not. No, that is from our very first MVP.
Oh yeah,
no, it's not functional one bit. But
and we're using Storybook.
Yes, Storybook has been great, and I'm looking to add visual testing to it. Yeah, Nick talks about Playwright. So Playwright for us was, I mean, any of our first times doing testing, but the ability to just use the extension, which then launches a browser, so you can click and fill in what you want, and will write the code for you using CodeGen. Game changer. Like, it was so much easier to do that than my first unit test with React Testing Library and Jest.
Oh yeah. I was looking at Applejack says AppWrite is the DB. So AppWrite is the DB, and AppWrite is also our authentication provider. They're an all-in-one service provider for developers. So as a service.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and you talked about your role typically. Now, you said you were a backend engineer, but our very own Shashi Low disagrees.
Yeah, Shashi disagrees, and I didn't. I don't know. I mean, Applejack's, man, he's just, what is he doing? Chameleon. Yeah. So I'm just a software engineer, full stack software engineer. You need me to do UI, I'll do UI. You need me to hook things up to the database, I'll hook things up. Currently, kind of do it all. Shashi has me looking into, we're going to look at self-hosting AppWrite eventually here. Probably look into that in a little bit. So yeah, I started off on the team as specifically backend, though, especially when we were building out the database structure at the very beginning, when there was no user interface. It was just all backend stuff. So
nice. Cool. We'll move on. This is a good one that I think. What's been the most challenging part of the project for you, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Testing. And I say that, I know I say that in like testing, but actually it's been my favorite part, honestly. What I remember a year ago, I wasn't a part of anything like this, and I did a few interviews and I was talking with a few people, and the biggest feedback that I got was, man, you don't have a lot of testing in your resume. And I went, yeah, I really don't know. And then I would go and look it up, and I'm like, it just was really hard for me to understand. And being in this project has kind of, what's great is it's now Shashi's like, you got to do a test. I'm like, frick, I know I got to do a test. I can't say no. And so I've been forced into doing it, and learning when and how to mock a function, what you should mock, there's so many different ways to do so many different things. That has been the most challenging. And how have I overcome it? Well, I've just dove right on in, wrote tests until they worked, and then had Shashi look at it, rip it apart, but in a constructive way, and then give me some feedback, and then jump on in. And then I think another thing is that has been helpful. I am a huge fan. I've been trying out Super Maven Copilot recently. And it has a built-in chat into VS Code, and so sometimes I kind of go, all right, I'm trying to write a test for this, and I want to see what they pop out, and then kind of go, all right, here's the structure. So if I forget how to do something, or I need a little bit of a push, yeah.
And I'm with you on testing there. I think it's definitely gotten easier the more you do it. I know that if I don't have to do it, for example, if I get a job and they don't do testing there, and then I'm asked to do it again, it will take a little bit of time to get those gears turning again. But Upa, we're using Jest with React Testing Library and Playwright. It's just one of those things that I feel like once you get going, it's much easier to do. But mocking, and Applejack's Alex can attest to that. Just mocking in your tests just threw me through a loop, and I couldn't get through it.
I think that still wins the record for the longest, how many comments and the longest outstanding PR that existed in our review sprint board.
It sort of reminded me when Shashi started assigning all those tickets. I took AP Music Theory in my senior year of high school, and I went to school for music education and performance to college, and so I thought, I know everything about music. What am I going to learn in this? And I was so wrong. But the 6 to 8 of us in that class would walk out every day, heads hung. I hate music theory. And that's exactly what our Discord was for about a week and a half when we started testing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, It was just all chaos in there. Test what? How many of the memes from Dumb and Dumber from the Mockingbird scene were we posting in there? And
yeah.
No.
All right, so we touched a little bit of this previously, but what programming languages and tools did you work with prior to GIS, and are there any new ones you have had to learn specifically for this?
So I mean, boot camp, vanilla HTML, CSS, before boot camp in 22, Python, MySQL, Flask, MongoDB, Express, React, Node.js. When I got out of boot camp, that's when Next.js was kind of jumping into, at the time, Next.js 13, 14, when they were kind of bringing in the app router.
Yep.
And believe it or not, my portfolio at the time was in Astro. So I went from Astro.
Man.
But here's why. No, but here's something really interesting. Okay, when I did it, all right, so I went from Astro to Next.js, and my site loaded like 5 times faster. To the point where I posted, it was my first I'm going to post about this on Twitter and see what something says. And the CEO of Vercel responded with like a lot of kudos and defended me in the chat when a lot of people were bashing it. So, and I don't know how to defend myself then. I was like, I don't know what's happening. I would say just a lot of React, TypeScript. I was learning before this. My favorite CMS is Sanity CMS. I was using that on my website for a while.
I just got my PlayStation 5 controller in.
Oh, yeah.
It's great.
I think, and what am I learning now moving forward?
What have you had to learn for GIS? So we talked about testing.
That's really been the best. I think testing and maybe some more of the uniqueness to, because we're using AppWright's web SDK, which is all run on the client side. So, figuring out what we can run server side, what are the benefits of running server side in certain areas, and then working through some of the technical, just the weird things with Next.js that are just different from just a native React, like a Vite, Reactor type environment. So
yeah. Hey, I just want to catch you before we keep going. Hey, Dom, thank you for hanging out, dude. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dom.
Actually, since he's leaving, are you good to keep going, or do you need to drop off?
I'm good for a little bit more.
Okay. All right, cool. Like 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I want to talk on this, which is kind of alluding a little bit to your talk next week at that conference. But how do you manage your workflow and keep track of your tasks?
That is a great question. So currently keeping track of my tasks, I've been I would say a to-do list collector of every time I see a to-do app, I want to try it and see if it'll make me better. Yes. All right. Right now, all right, to answer the question directly without going on an ADHD tangent, I currently use Apple Reminders. So I have Apple Reminders. I have an area for my projects. And I usually take what cards that I'm given, put them in there, and then I kind of prioritize what I'm going to do for that day or that evening. I think, but how do I manage all of that? I'm still working it out. It's something that I still struggle with because you and I have talked about this, and we are very similar where we want to do it all. We want to work on Shashi's project. We want to build our full-blown, random application blog, minimal blogs, minimal portfolio sites, or we want to play with this technology or whatever, right? And my coach, she, when I met with her about 2 months ago, we really dove into some things. She's like, all right, what do we need to tackle? And I'm like, I'm overwhelmed, and I know you can relate because we have our day jobs. I have a job that has nothing to do with web development. And then, I have family, I have my wife that, got to make sure that I'm not, it's not good to ignore your wife. So, make sure that I'm cultivating that relationship, for a healthy marriage. And so I had to take a step back and realize that I wasn't getting enough sleep. I know it's going to sound silly, but it's
not at all.
I was getting maybe 5 hours of sleep a night. Working 9-hour days. So I'll get off work at 5, spend hour or 2 with Leah. We would cook dinner and sit down and watch a TV show together, hang out, and then I would code from 7 or 8 p.m. until 2 a.m. and because that's the only time that I had. And I would do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday we would go to a coffee shop and I would do it all day long, and then Sunday after church we would do that all afternoon. And it got to the point where I was so burnt out that I couldn't even think. My mental health was not great, and so I had to take a step back and see how much time do I really have during the week to be able to get some of this stuff done. So I am going to be doing a talk on this at that conference next week. I have a whole slide deck with a lot of great information, so I'm going to be recording it and I'll post it to my YouTube.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the finished thing.
But I would say this, I just take a look at, I take a step. My goal right now is to get a job as a web developer. And so what are the things that are going to get me there? And those are going to be the things that I prioritize and choosing. So recently I've chosen Gridiron Survivor to be what I invest my time into. I help out. I'm helping James Quick review PRs right now. I haven't done a lot of code base recently, but I've been helping him review some of his PRs. And then, of course, getting ready to do all the networking at conferences and
man.
Like that. So, but I'm learning to give myself a little bit of grace and just going, you know what?
Good. You have to.
I'm not going to be able to do everything. I can take a night off. I can, nothing's going to. Even Shashi and I talked about the fact that I'm like, I might have a new freelance client that I'm waiting to see if they're going to sign on or not. And if they sign on, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep doing just for a while. I might need to step back for a little bit. And he's like, you got to do what you got to do. So yeah, we're just trying to figure it out. But yeah, for workflow, I've been trying to go all native Mac. I use Apple Mail. I use Apple Calendar. I use Apple Reminders,
Notes.
But in Apple Notes, I love. I do miss things though. I
actually just swapped back to Superlist, and I've bounced between Todoist, Superlist, and Todoist for a while.
But here's okay. So you want to know my other sites that my newest project idea, my never-ending list of domains. So I bought beproductive.dev.
And this is going to be what exactly?
I have no idea.
I'm gonna know yet. Maybe for now we could host your presentation from that.
Well, that's what I was thinking about doing, but I was thinking about like interviewing people on productivity and doing something like this, or like a monthly podcast, or
I think you and I need to like set aside like a weekend to chat, because we have a lot of things we want to do in common and a lot of similarities of what we
can partner on some of these things together. But right now I focus on my sprint board, what I got to get done, and I've learned to prioritize certain things. So I'm trying to prioritize self-care first, and there's a bunch of categories in there that I look at: physical health, mental health, spiritual health for me, and then I have my projects and goals that I'm working towards. So, I got to be at work, do my work thing during the day, and then in the evening with the hours that I do have, I'm choosing one thing, and that's all I'm going to work on for that day.
Good. I like that. Excellent. A couple more questions here. Have there been any highlights along your journey into web development so far? I think I know of a couple, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
Any highlights? Oh my gosh, there's so many highlights. Just being a part of Gridiron Survivor has been a highlight. I think I want to say the biggest highlight for me in web development so far has been this year in general. I think after that conference in January, I met a lot of really cool people, including yourself, and we've all stayed in contact. We're all involved in projects together. And from that, I've had the honor just to be working with Shashi, to be working with James Quick, to have a phenomenal coach like Tessa Kriesel, to this year has just blown up as far as just being known in the community, and not by saying like, oh, I'm known for, I'm Chris Wicks, the Gist guy, but like
being a part of it,
just being a part, like, oh, that's Chris Wicks, cool, and I think that's been great. I think the biggest, I know the highlights. The biggest highlight that I think that I have was something that I think lacks for those of us that are self-learners, boot camp grads. So we're at that conference in January, and we're at the pig roast, the Wednesday night barbecue that we had there.
Yep.
And I was at a table with Brad Garopi and a bunch of others, and we were talking about Next.js and their caching, and how right now Next.js you're kind of you're opted into caching by default. Okay, so we were talking about all that at the table, and Brad and I had an awesome conversation just on caching and caching methodologies and Next.js and what we like and what we don't like and what we've seen. And then he talked to me about Remix. I'm like, oh, what is that? That sounds really cool. And we talked about that. Later that night, we were by the fire pit, and he's like, so who do you work for? And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to get a job as a developer. And he's like, I don't understand. It sounds like you know what you're talking about. And I was, I in my head, I'm like, I do?
Man, dude, all right. I had the same situation with him, basically. Wild. Yeah. Like, how humbling was that?
Yes, humbling in general, like, and super nice guy too. So like, and I know him now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this dude is so kind and genuine. And
but what a boost that must have been for you.
Huge boost. And then so that was affirmation number one. And I didn't ask for anything. I was just having a conversation with someone that they were blown away.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the same thing came up later when I was talking to a few other people at that conference, where the same thing happened, where like, hey, that, you've made you showing up to these things and just talking, gave me an opportunity to show that I have knowledge. But the cool part is the opportunity since that conference to go, all right, yes, I talked about what I know. Now let me show you what I know. And I was able to do a lot of cool things with a lot of cool people to almost a proof point of, I don't know everything. There's a lot of things that I'm missing, and I do not pretend to be perfect at all, because my gosh, my code can always get better. But to be able to go, hey, I can, put my foot where my mouth is. That the phrase? Put your foot where your mouth is, or put your mouth where your nose is, or skies in the mouth of the tiger, or something. I don't know. But
one of those mixtures of words.
One of those, but basically, I could walk the walk, and also, be at a point where I'm like, hey, I'm not coming in here like I'm the crap and going, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this for you or not, but here's what I know about it, and I've done this before, so I'm pretty sure I'm gonna do it for you. And then to be able to go in and help people out with a project without having to go, I need your help in showing me how to do this, is pretty cool.
Massive.
So
cool, man. Yeah, I think that conference would definitely be the highlight of my year too. Just a conference in general, but that was unparalleled. All right, cool. One last one for you before we close. What, like, is there anything that you see out there that you really want to mess with or really want to learn in your spare time?
There's Brian, how could you ask me this question?
Give me like your top 3, because I know my list is huge.
I feel like I can sing along with this music. It's super chill.
We could have Shashi's got a good question here.
What? Oh,
there's only one correct answer. You're right.
Obviously, it's Jason.
That guy. You mean Tayson Joris?
No, it's everyone is my favorite as a collective, but our fearless leader, you sir,
right,
are my favorite, because you're the one who's taken a chance on us. You've invested in us, literally out of the kindness of your heart. Time is money, money is time, and you've invested a lot of time into us, and I'm very thankful for you, and the opportunities that you are bringing to us, and you're helping us shine. You're helping us, as what's her name says, you're helping us shine bright like a diamond.
Yep. Who's that? I'm not gonna pretend to know what pop artist.
I don't know who that is. Is that Rihanna? That's
I was
Rihanna.
gonna say Rihanna, right?
I think it's Rihanna. Anyway.
Yeah.
Projects or technologies you're excited to explore. So there's a new one called Ingest that I'm really interested in. So Ingest is a company that does they offer cron jobs almost as like a service. So they do cron jobs and things like that they can do. So rather than having to use Vercel for that, they're using cron jobs. We're actually looking at using Ingest for deals for devs and emails. And that's why where you recently saw James do a hackathon and he tried Ingest. I was like, oh, this is, and I looked into it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is really cool. So Ingest is one that I'm definitely interested in. I would, she's doing, that's a good, we should, yes, Sylvia Vargas. Okay, thank you, Nick. That's really cool. Definitely look into that. Then I would say for other technologies, I started playing with Angular because it just seemed cool. And so I did their basic tutorial and I'm like, okay, this is really cool. So Angular, yeah. So Angular, and then Remix. I'm really interested because Brad talks about it. Shonda Person had a phenomenal talk about it at Render, and I'm like, man, this Remix thing looks really cool, and I wonder how much it's different from, Next.js. So I might play around with those.
Nice, man. Yeah, Remix interests me for sure. I love Astro, so I'm gonna keep messing with it. There's too many things out there, but I will say HTMX still has my interest.
Good night, Roxy.
Roxy, thank you for hanging out. Good night. A friend of mine made a game with HTMX, and he lives across the sea in Switzerland, I think, and there's no lag whatsoever.
Wow.
And it's just, it's flawed. Like he has to finish and polish it out and everything, styles wise, but it functions 100% well. So it, that's definitely still on my list too. Angular, I would like to mess with. It just looks like, since they did the redesign, or not even the redesign, but just the new version of it, basically, it just looks.
It's really interesting. It's
really
cool.
Killer.
Once you get the concept, especially after knowing React, you're like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Oh, Mika, you are hella late. You'll have to catch the replay. Yeah, that's for sure.
Jinx, you owe me.
All right, you owe me a soda the next time I see you. Chris, where can people follow you? Where can people see your work?
You can follow me on X, Twitter X at I am Wix, IAMWIX. My website is chrisnowicki.io. And you can find me in those places. I'm on GitHub, LinkedIn, and you'll find all those links there.
Cool, man. Awesome. I want to address a couple quick things before you go. Upa's asking, when can we expect the application to be released? So we are not going to be releasing it this season, unfortunately, for American football. We're just not meeting our deadline, but it's a good question. I know that we will be doing some internal testing of it when we have it in a good place. So maybe that's something that we can get like a group going, a league going on there.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. Nick has a really good.
We'll jump there first. That's a quicker one.
Okay, so listen. Can I have 2 minutes to talk through this real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
All right, Nick. It's a 3, 2, 1. That's all you got to remember. 3 hours. So you get your ribs and you peel off the little skin in the back. Season it with whatever seasoning you like. I use a Jack Henry's Honey Rub rib seasoning. You can buy it on Amazon. It's phenomenal. So I just generously coat it in that, and then fire up the smoker to 225. Put the ribs on the smoker at 225. Close the smoker and let it sit for 3 hours. Just do a timer for 3 hours. But yeah, dry rub, not wet rub. Sometimes I use mustard as a binder. Sometimes I don't. I more recently have not been using a binder, and they've turned out phenomenal. Okay.
I've got to send you. My dad makes a sweet curry spice blend that's not super heavy on the curry. I've got to send you a bottle because it's killer.
Send me, I'll give it a go. Yeah,
sweet deal.
So then, after the 3 hours, you take them off. Then you put them in tin foil. Before you close the tin foil, you put 3 tablespoons of butter, separate it out over the rib, and then you you dust it with some brown sugar, cover it up in tin foil, put it back on the smoker, turn the smoke level from high down to low for 2 hours. You don't have to test it or anything. After 2 hours, you unwrap it, you put it back on the smoker, and you brush the top of the ribs with whatever barbecue sauce you want. And then you smoke it for 1 more hour with high smoke on, and then take it off, and they're ready to go. And you may think it may be too long, or they dry off. When I took the ribs off, and you can see pictures of the ribs on my Twitter, the bones literally slid out like butter. It was so good.
Yeah, they look so good. Yeah.
All right, so there you go, Nick. That is for you, bud. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you those rubs after. I'll send it so that they get back to you after that conference. I want to touch on this real quick. While this is being super new to development, but being around / lurking, it feels all roads point towards Next.js, and I'm kind of meh on that. I'm not sure why. I kind of feel the same way, and I'm not brand new to it.
Here's why you feel meh. All right, because really, Create React app switch to recommending Next.js. So that's and now positive, negative. That's just kind of where a lot of the React framework is pointing towards. And we know, Shashi, we've had our own struggles with it. I've had the pleasure of meeting Lee Robb. Lee Robb was on James' stream and had a lot of good information. But that's where things like Remix come into play. Like, all right, I think Next.js is phenomenal for certain things.
Yes.
Absolutely. Like if you want to spin up an app quickly, dude, perfect for that. You got a built-in backend. It's all ready to go. You have you can create a route super easily. It's great. But that's where it leaves me curious too. I used to use, before I knew about Next.js, I was using Vite.
Vite.
Yeah, I was using Vite for my React. I don't know. That. And then, yes, it's great for SSQ.
Yes, it is.
And then, I would use Express for the backend. So, Walter, I think it's really
it's also definitely a bubble. I gotta say. It's the bubble that we're in on Tech Twitter, because there's plenty of businesses that exist out there that still just use React and they don't use Next.
And here would be my recommendation for Walter, because I know Walter, and by Walter I mean, if y'all don't know, there's another Ryan, and it's really crazy. Okay, but I would still go back the way that I did it. I wouldn't change that instantly. I want to understand what that server does behind the scenes, because that helped me appreciate the app router that Next.js offered, and made it a little bit easier, and I didn't have to manage an Express backends, and built it out that way. But I would learn how to do Express as a backend, with Node.js, and use whatever you want for, use MongoDB, use MySQL, learn how to use an ORM like Prisma,
Drizzle, right,
or Drizzle or anything like that. But you need to understand it so that you can do it. Now, Shashi. I mean, I wonder.
He wants to rewrite this in Laravel now.
Laravel, yeah. We're gonna pull in Josh Siri and have him talk Laravel to us. But I think I get why all Next.js is the React app right now. That's what everyone is using. Next.js 15 is about to come out, and it's going to change things up even more. It brings in a lot of React 19 stuff. So I think,
yeah. Awesome. Well, that will do it for tonight then. I appreciate everyone's questions and everything.
Yeah.
We got to get going. This was longer than anticipated, but I knew it would be, especially with my man Chris. Again, I'm Ryan.
For doing this.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I'm happy to. I love this content. I've always wanted to have a podcast, and that's essentially what this is, right? And getting to learn the people I'm working with better, get to learn more about you and everyone else. So you can follow me at Ryan.Furrer. That's Ryan D.O.T. Furrer at X, YouTube, Twitch. LinkedIn is just Ryan Furrer. GitHub is Ryan.Furrer. Chris, you can find him at I am Wix on Twitter. And then I think it's Chris Nowicki everywhere else, right?
Yeah, if you go to I am Wix on Twitter, my link to my portfolio is on there. It has all my links to all my other socials, and you can find me. You can find me there. And it's not too late to go to that conference in Wisconsin next week. I will be there. Shashi will be there. Oh, Tracy is here.
Tracy's here, and she's going to be there.
She's going to be
there. She is.
Week. Yeah, so yeah, not too late to go to that conference, and you can meet all of us in person and just hang out and have a blast.
Yeah, definitely. And if you can't go to that conference, they are there's free tickets online to view the main keynotes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all I got. Definitely tune into that to see what everyone's doing up there. Your Twitter feeds are about to be spammed with great content coming from people.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be great. But thank you again, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Chris, thank you for being my first
guest. Thank you for having me, Ryan.
Yeah, of course.